devices. If at any point there are any streaming issues, then I will be informed and the meeting will be adjourned until such time that the technological issues can be resolved. If during the course of the meeting any member of the committee is having connection issues, then there will be a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes to determine whether the connection issues can be resolved. If following the adjournment the connection issues cannot be resolved, then providing the meeting remains quorate, it will continue. It will be deemed that the member with connection issues has left the meeting and will no longer be able to participate. If it's my connection that is lost, then the Vice Chair will take over. For officers and speakers, please make sure that your microphones a question on the officer's report during the debate, please use the raised hand function and wait for me to ask you to speak. The voting during virtual meetings will use the raised hand function. Are there any questions before we move to the formal agenda? I will now ask our Democratic Services Officer to confirm the attendees at this meeting. Your name will be called out. Can you please confirm your attendance?
Thank you, Chair. Just to remind members and for the public's benefit, further to the publication of the agenda for this meeting, full council yesterday evening approved a change of membership for this committee for the remainder of the current municipal year. Councillor Byrne has now been replaced by Councillor Cranham, but Councillor Byrne is still eligible to act as a substitute by virtue of attending the mandatory annual training for members. I'll now go through the attendees for this evening, including names of nominated substitutes for this evening. Councillor Byrne.
Present.
Councillor Ellis.
Present.
Councillor Brown.
Present.
Councillor Butlin.
Present.
Councillor Keeling.
Present.
Councillor Mrs Garcia.
Present.
Councillor Gillias.
Present.
Councillor Miss Lawrence.
Present.
Councillor Picker.
Present.
Councillor Roodhouse.
Present.
Councillor Sanderson.
Present.
And Councillor Srivastava.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, agenda item 2 are apologies. To receive apologies for absence from the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. So 3 apologies this evening from Councillors Eccleston, Cranham and Mrs Brown. Their substitutes respectively are Councillors Keeling, Byrne and Ellis.
Thank you. Agenda item 3 are declarations of interest. Bearing in mind that we have application R20/0146, I'm going to ask our legal service officer to advise councillors on declarations of interest under A, non-pecuniary.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, just references in relation to the TPO application, is that correct,
Yes.
Chair? Yes. So as those of you present may be aware, the TP application is made by a relative of one of our members. So there is no necessity to declare a non-pecuniary interest just by virtue of knowing that member. So you don't need to declare that at this time.
Thank you. Are there any other non-pecuniary interests as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors? Councillor Gillias?
Yes, Chair, I'm familiar with this property, having done some work on it in the past.
Thank you. Are there any other non-pecuniary interests? Okay, B, pecuniary interests as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors. And C, notice under Section 106 Local Government Finance Act 1992, non-payment of council tax. Thank you. We now move on to applications for consideration. And the first application is R19/1387, Phase 3, Corston Extension Site, Coventry Road, Rugby, referring to the erection of 21 residential dwellings re the plan R17/1895 to include 7 additional units, and the case officer is Lucy Davidson. Lucy, I'm going to hand over to you now.
Thank you, Chair. If somebody could just confirm to me that you can see my presentation.
Yes, I can see that, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, as explained already, this application is for the erection of 21 residential dwellings. Application R17/1895 was a reserved matters application that related to the erection of 214 dwellings. This application relates specifically to the area within the red line boundary, which had previously been approved with 14 dwellings, and this application is a full planning application to increase that to 21. Linden Homes are seeking to replan this parcel of land, replacing several larger 4 and 5 bedroom homes with a smaller range of predominantly 3 bedroom family homes. This is to meet market demand. The application proposes 19 market housing units, 17 of which are 3 bedroom dwellings and 2 4 bedroom dwellings. And there is also 2 affordable units, which are 3 bedroom dwellings located within the site area. This is a Google satellite image, and this is sort of the general area of where the application would be. These are photographs from last Friday. It's currently being used sort of as storage by Linden Homes and is obviously still undeveloped. This is the previously approved layout for reference of the 14 dwellings, and this is it with the proposed 21 that's brought to you this evening. House types included in this application include the Evanley, the Knightley, the Montfort, and these are the affordable housing units proposed. These are similar house types that are within the rest of the development, and this is also the garages that are proposed. With regards to the principle of development, the application is within Rugby Town as defined by GP2 of the local plan. This is the main focus of all development in the borough and is therefore the most sustainable location and therefore complies with GP Policy 1 and GP2. As previously outlined, this application has been brought to respond to local housing need, and the affordable housing proposed is that of 30%, which is that which is specified within the local plan, therefore complying with policy H1 and H2 of the local plan. With regards to the character and design, the house types proposed are that which are seen within the wider development and therefore will match in with that is already approved on the site. It does include various features including porches, curved headers and render. There is also landscaping scheme proposed which fits in with the rest of the development, and there is off-street parking proposed to therefore limit the need for any on-street. The parking proposed for each dwelling also meets the parking criteria of the local plan as in Appendix 5. With regards to neighbouring amenity, it is assessed that there would be no amenity issues between the various dwellings. There's also satisfactory distances between the wider development of the site with the open space that was provided by R17/1895. Other matters, the sustainable design and construction is dealt with by condition as outlined in the report. Ecology have no objections to the application, and with regards to air quality, this has been assessed by environmental health. Whilst there would be mitigation and assessment required on this, this has been outlined in the conditions of the report. Developer contributions are also included in the heads of term. Therefore, the recommendation is that the application complies with the local plan policies and the NPPF, and that therefore it should be granted subject to the conditions and informative set out in the draft decision notice appended to the report you received and the completion of the legal agreement to secure the necessary financial agreements. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you very much for your report. And can I say that my suggestion of including the conditions in the main report is making it much easier for committee members to actually follow through what is happening. Right, committee, do we have any questions of clarification on the officer's report, please? Okay, Councillor Picker.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Lucy, for the report. I just want some clarification on paragraph 7 in relation to affordable housing. Obviously, you said that there will be 2 affordable units on this site. Is that in addition to the existing applications? So these are new affordable housing units that have been triggered as a result of the change that's been submitted?
Through you, Chair, sorry, yes. Because this application is a new full application, these 2 affordable housing units are specifically relating to this area, as it required a full application rather than a reserve matters on top of the additional one, or the previous one, sorry.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Bean.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just following on from Councillor Picker's question there, with regard to the car parking spaces at those 2 affordable houses, could the officer just confirm that the size of those parking spaces is exactly the same kind of size or shape as the regular 3-bedroom homes, so there wouldn't be any difference in the size of the parking spaces available? Thank you.
Through you, Chair, no, all car parking spaces are exactly the same size. There's a set dimension that they have to meet, and that has been assessed by our statutory consultee, Warwickshire County Council Highways Department, and they have reviewed that, and they'll be it's set. It doesn't differ between whether the house is affordable or not, so it'll be exactly the same.
All right, thank you for the clarification. Are there any further questions of clarification? Okay. In that case, we will move it into debate. Who would like to kick off on the debate, please? Councillor Garcia.
Hi, yes, I will. I think actually this is a much better use of the land rather than having 4 or 5 bedroomed houses. I'm pleased to see there's some affordable property on it. I do feel that it's a shame about the car parking, that as usual it only fits the minimum standard, but I suppose you all knew I was going to say that anyway. So I would move this for approval.
Thank you very much, Councillor Garcia. Councillor Gillies, you're next.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Just to say, yes, this ticks all the boxes for me, and I'd like to second that proposal.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gillies. Councillor Picker.
I was also very happy to second approval on this, so we'll leave it there. Okay,
thank you. Councillor Ellis, you had your hand raised. Do you wish to say anything?
I was just going to say the same.
Okay. Okay then. So we have had the application proposed by Councillor Garcia, seconded by Councillor Gillies. All those in favour, please raise your hands now.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. That is lovely. Okay, you can take your hands down again. All right. Before we move on to the next item, I missed asking for approval for the minutes of the previous meeting. So can I please have approval of minutes for the previous meeting, please? Can you all raise your hands to approve?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to application R20/0146, which is a tree works application to remove a protected lime tree at 127 Bournemore Road, and David Gower is going to present this report for us. Over to you, Mr. Gower.
Thank you, Chair. Just let me get the presentation up. What's this? Can somebody please confirm to me that you can see this?
Unfortunately, we have got one of your emails masking the presentation. So,
sorry, hang on.
Dave, it's your QGIS that we can see, unless you're starting with that.
right, well, I think we can, no.
Sorry, hang on. I've not done this before, so just please bear with me a second.
Do you need some advice from IT? Because Stuart can give you some advice if you need.
Yes, please.
Stuart, can you help, please?
Hang on. So I can't hear anything, to be honest.
Dave, I can share the application or your presentation if you wish.
Yeah, go on then.
Okay, thank you, Lucy. Can you put the presentation up for us? And then, Mr. Gower, if you can ask when you need the slide to be moved on to the next one, please.
So, Lucy?
Yep.
Where have you got that from?
From the copy that was already saved.
Because I've got that's not. I've updated the presentation. Hang on. That's the old one. So let me just try again with this. Hang on. Sorry about this.
Chair, might it be worth taking a short adjournment whilst we sort out the technical issues?
Yes, I think so. IT, can you put an adjournment notice up, please, while we sort out the technology? Stuart, we can't hear you. Right, I'm assuming that the adjournment notice has been removed and that Mr. Gower can continue with his presentation. Okay, over to you, Dave.
Okay, thank you, and apologies for that. So yeah, this is a TreeWorks application to remove a protected lime tree at 127 Bournemore Road. This first picture shows the subject tree in the middle of the picture. The tree is contained with Tree Preservation Order number 48, Group 2, which covers a number of trees contained within the garden frontages of 117 to 143 Bournemore Road. Replacement planting details have been provided by the applicants. This application is being reported to Planning Committee because the applicant is related to a borough councillor. This shows the Tree Preservation Order. There's a little tree symbol adjacent to where which says G2 to the left. The Preservation Order is a group order which covers a number of trees within the frontages of the gardens, and the symbol shows the approximate position of the tree. Reasons put forward to support the removal of the tree. The tree debris blocks gutters. Tree is situated at the edge of a tarmac drive and reversing bay and effectively inhibits free parking spaces due to the nature of lime trees, which have extremely heavy sap drop in spring and summer. Tree shed seed pods and branches up to 1.5 metres long and 25 millimetres thick. Leaf drop and pigeon drop-ins. Removal of the tree would enhance the quality of life of the residents, with any adverse impacts mitigated by the planting proposal. Applicant wishes to reconfigure and extend the driveway. It's a significant contributor into the degradation of the house. A letter of support to this effect has also been received from a neighbouring property as exhibited in your reports. So the options to the planning committee are to refuse the tree works application to fell based on a negative impact to local visual amenity, or to approve the tree works application based on the reasons as stated, subject to replacement planting. In considering tree works applications, the LPA are advised to assess the amenity value of the tree and the likely impact of the proposal on the amenity of the area, and in the light of their assessment, to consider whether or not the proposal is justified having regard to the reasons put forward in the support of it. The subject tree is a early mature lime tree. It is 15.5 metres in height. It is estimated the tree is about 50 years old. The main stem of the tree is located 9 metres away from the nearest point of the property, which is the garage, with the canopy spreading 5 metres towards the property. There is 4 metres canopy clearance from the property. The tree is located within the grass garden and immediately adjacent to the driveway and reversing circle. The tree was found to be in good condition with no major defects. It serves as a prominent visual amenity within the local area, being highly visible from Bournemore Road alongside other protected trees located within adjacent properties. There was some small diameter deadwood noted on the ground, and also some minor deadwood within the tree. The crown is quite low over the driveway, but routine tree works may be described to remove deadwood and also to crown lift the tree above the driveway. No damage was noted to the property as a direct consequence of the tree. Leaf and seed drop in the gutters may be considered as removal of the leaf and seed matter from the gutters may be considered as routine maintenance. Issues in relation to sap, leaf drop, seed drop in relation to trees can be considered natural processes and not reasons the British legal system recognises as a legal nuisance. It is not considered that these reasons are sufficient to justify the removal of a protected tree. If the tree is removed, there will be a detrimental impact upon local visual amenity, which could set a precedent to remove other similar protected trees located within adjacent properties. Collectively, the trees located within the property frontages constitute a highly visual and prominent landscape feature. Permission was granted in 2016 at the same property to remove 3 defective and very large and over mature poplar trees which dominated the front garden. This decision noted that the retention of this lime tree will enable visual amenity to be retained whilst becoming the focal point within the garden. Loss of the lime tree will mean there's no dominant tree cover left in the garden. The front garden is relatively large at 335 square metres, and it is considered that there could be scope to extend or reconfigure the driveway whilst retaining the subject tree and effectively taking parked vehicles away from the tree. And it is recommended that this is given due consideration. We measure the visual amenity value by using a method called TEMPO, which is the tree evaluation method for the preservation orders, and it's a tool based on the condition, the retention span, the relative public visibility, and any other factors. And it's a scoring process which gives you the score and tells you if that tree is worthy of a TPO. And in this case, it is. It's scored 17 points. Anything over 16 definitely merits a TPO. This is a replanting proposal which was submitted by the applicants. The black symbol represents the subject tree to be removed. The 3 white symbols at the front are the 3 small silver birch trees to act as mitigation planting. The yellow tree is another silver birch tree, which is slightly bigger at 4 to 4.5 metres in height. And the 2 green symbols are existing to existing lime trees within adjoining properties. And again, the applicant has provided pictures of what they propose to plant. So you've got 3 multi-stemmed birch trees to the left and a slightly bigger silver birch tree at 4 to 4.5 metres in height to the right. Proposed mitigation planting. Subject trees are approximately 50 years old, so, and is an established component of the local street scene. Mitigation planting, it is considered, will take many years to establish and begin to replicate the existing dimensions, stature and amenity value of the subject tree, and is only usually prescribed for when granting permission to remove those trees that are considered dead, dangerous or in poor condition. Silver birch is a slightly smaller growing species than a lime, and similarly not as long living, and sometimes they can also cause issues in relation to seed and pollen. So we have some pictures. So the left-hand picture shows the view of the tree in the centre of the picture as viewed from Bournemouth Road. The right-hand picture shows the tree as viewed from the top of the driveway. This picture shows a view of the tree from within the garden. You can just see the kind of turning circle next to it. This tree shows the property. So you've got 9 metres from the garage to the tree stem, and obviously you've got some clearance between the outer canopy and the edge of the property. Okay. This is another view of Bournemouth Road. Again, it shows the subject tree in the middle of the picture, and it shows other protected trees which are in the same preservation order to the right and also to the rear of the property as well. Again, another picture from within the garden. You can just see these 3 kind of areas of bare grass, which is where the 3 poplar trees, which I mentioned before, were located and removed a few years ago. Again, this shows some images of the kind of small twigs which have come out of the tree, and obviously some leaves and seed as well. It's usually with squirrel damage. Squirrels like to kind of chew the twigs on lime trees, and that usually leads up to dead wood, and sometimes it falls out in the wind. That's the picture of the roof of the garage, which shows some seed and obviously some debris within the gutters. That's a picture of the front of the property. Again, they could possibly scope to reconfigure the driveway and maybe take parking away from the lime tree. So the recommendation is that the tree works application be refused if the tree is subject to the proposal is in good condition and forms a prominent visual amenity and contributes positively to the overall landscape character of the local area. If the tree is removed, there would be a detrimental impact upon local landscape character. The grounds on which the application was made were not considered sufficient to outweigh the presumption in favour of the preservation of the tree. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. And now I'm going to ask legal. Dave, can you switch your microphone up for a minute, please? Because we're getting feedback. I'm going to ask legal just to go through how we consider an application like this in view of the NPPF and the local plan and the balance that we should give to any application. Sarah?
Thank you, Chair. So as members are aware, consent works for applications to protected trees don't often come to planning committee. So I thought it'd be worth, just before we get into the debate, to refresh members on the factors we need to consider in these applications, as they do differ a little bit from planning applications, which are obviously well versed in deciding. As members are aware, a tree preservation order is the principal regulatory means for protecting trees, and the purpose of a TPO is to protect trees of amenity value to local communities. And once a TPO is in place, it prohibits a range of actions happening to that protected tree without the council's consent. This can include cutting down the tree, topping, lopping, uprooting, willful damage, willful destruction, and the cutting of roots. There are some exceptions to the need to obtain the council's consent, but none are relevant for the purposes of tonight's application, and that's why it's before you for consideration. Much like when a planning application is made, an application for works to a protected tree can be granted unconditionally, conditionally, or refused. Each application is considered on its merits, and whatever course of action the council decides to pursue, they must provide reasons for that decision. It's important to note that when an applicant is making the application for consent for works to a protected tree, the onus is on them to provide reasons for the proposed work, and they should also demonstrate that the proposal they're seeking, i.e. the works they're looking to do, are a proportionate solution to the concerns they have raised and meet the requirements of sound arboriculture. And those are some of the things that Dave has outlined in his presentation. Taking the applicant's information into consideration, whilst you're considering this application, you'll need to take into account the following matters. You need to look at the amenity value of the tree and the likely impact of the proposal on the amenity value of the area. In light of this assessment, you need to consider whether the proposal is justified, having regard to the reasons and additional information put forward to support it. So those are the reasons of the applicant. You need to consider whether any loss or damage is likely to arise if consent is refused or granted subject to conditions. You need to consider whether there are any requirements that apply in regard to protected species. You need to consider whether there are any other material considerations, and that's where the development plan, policies and the NPPF come in, but unlike a planning application, they're not your overriding consideration. And you also need to ensure that appropriate expertise informs your decision, and again, that is where Dave's report and presentation that he's just done come in as our arboricultural officer. You have to decide the application that is before you, so you can't issue a decision which substantially alters the work's been requested. And as with planning applications, there is the usual rights of appeal against any decision that are made. So bearing that in mind, I'll hand back over to you, Chair, to continue the application.
Right, thank you very much. Okay, so hopefully committee now, you've heard the presentation, you've had the report to consider with the accompanying mitigation scheme and the photographs that have all been submitted to show the tree and also to show the proposed mitigation. And you've also now heard from legal how we should be judging this one. So we now move into any questions of clarification. Does anybody have a question of clarification, please? Councillor Gillies.
Yes, just one question, Chair. Having been sort of familiar with the dwelling, I wasn't really familiar with the landscape as such. So I did actually drive by there on Monday and had a look at all the trees along that frontage. And looking at it, my thoughts are that those trees were planted at the same time the houses were built. Could the officer sort of suggest that I'm thinking in the right way?
Okay, Mr. Gower.
Yeah, for you, Chair. I think, well, the order was put on in 1978, and I think that is when the estate was built, but I'm not absolutely sure. But looking at the style of the houses, I think they definitely look like houses from the late 70s. I think the trees kind of predate that. I think they were part of the old kind of, I think there was a stately home or kind of there's like a, I'm not sure which one it was, but there's lots of mature trees within the area which kind of pre-existed the development which we now see. Hence the order was put on at the time of the planning application to preserve the trees because of that threat of development.
Thank you. If I'm correct, I think that this was part of the Edwin Walker estate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Gillies, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other more questions of clarification on this one, please? No. In that case, we'll move it into debate. Councillor Sanderson, I think your hand is first.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm having had a look at the report in detail and taking the photographs into consideration. I think the officer has called this right. Looking at it, this is a 50-year-old tree. It does need a little bit of tender care and love and appreciation. It's most of it could be done by, as the officer says, some crown lifting and some tidying of the tree. The drive to the garages is relatively easy problem to solve, and I don't think that the amount of wood fall or leaf fall that they're getting there is that unusual for this type of property. I'm sure we all have to clear our gutters from time to time. So in terms of the application, I'm supporting the recommendation that the application should be refused.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Right, Councillor Butlin, I think your hand was up next.
Thank you, Chair. I've done a little bit of research on this one in terms of what recommendations are for certain types of trees in proximity to houses. Limes and pine trees are classified as and I'll read it to you. Lime and pine trees are notorious for secreting sap on whatever is below. Parked cars, patios, driveways, and even your house could all be subject to the sticky residue that falls from these trees in the spring and summer seasons. Although it is not advised to remove these trees unless you absolutely must, it is important to keep an eye on its surrounding areas. The residue that falls on your property can easily cause damage to paintwork and become safety risk on patios if not dealt with. Roots can also cause subsidence like other dangerous plants on this list. However, if a lime tree is further than 20 metres from your property, it may be within a safe distance. Now, a lot of the comments on them, this is an insurance company, is consistent with the letter we received from the neighbour in terms of his experience in dealing with the residue from this tree. Also, I read on another site that, or if you want to plant a lime tree close to a house or even 20 metres from a house, because of you should do what we call an aphid resistant tree, because that cuts down the amount of sap that kind of falls on cars, etc. So the insurance companies are recommended that it should be at least 20 metres away from a house. This tree is 9 metres away, and if you look at those photos, it does look very oppressive in terms of the proximity to the front door of that house. And it's consistent with basically blocking a lot of the light from the front windows of the house also, which is also consistent with the neighbour's letter which we received lobbying on behalf of the applicant. So the two neighbours don't exactly kind of like the amenity value that they've got right on their front doorsteps. So I take the view that looking at what's being proposed as a kind of an alternative plant and further away from the house, and don't forget we're here to as much represent people as they are trees, and these people have got to live in these houses and maintain them. And lime trees are also notorious for kind of, as pointed out by the officer, for shedding a fair amount of debris every year, which kind of ups the kind of maintenance costs and of a property. Now, there's a point at which it gets too big, and bearing in mind that it is already too close and it's quite of a size, I'm of a mind to approve the applicants for removal of the tree and replanting in line with the photos that he's kind of demonstrated he would plant or she would plant. You know, when you read the stuff about lime trees, they're not something you want close to your house. And I'm kind of I veer towards people sometimes more than trees. So I kind of move for approval of the applicant.
And
Right, Councillor Garcia, your hand was up next, so can we go over to you, please? Councillor Garcia, are you there? Need to unmute yourself, please.
Beg your pardon. I was waxing lyrical there and nobody could hear me.
No, not at all.
Well, on this occasion, I have to concur with Councillor Butlin. I think we have to take a more pragmatic view on lime trees. I know firsthand what an absolute pain in the jacksie they can be. The mess and the damage it does to your cars is absolutely unbelievable. And if we look at the photos in this instance, that tree has actually outgrown its situation, really. It's far too close to the property. It is blocking all the light. And I should think that it drives whoever lives there absolutely spare with all the debris. So I will be more than happy to second Councillor Butlin's proposal.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Bean, you next.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And the two previous speakers, Councillor Butlin and Councillor Garcia, have really mirrored what I was going to say. I think my real concern was the likely effect of not doing anything with regard to the quality of life of the residents in that area, which is, of course, a major material consideration, specifically with regard to the natural light, which seems to be being restricted when the sun moves or swings around from the east to the west during the day. There seems to be quite a restriction on that, and this tree is causing it. So for that reason, I was also going to second, well, Councillor Garcia has already done that, Councillor Butlin's suggestion. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. So we've actually had a proposal and seconders to, if I can find the last bit. So to go against the officer's recommendation and approve the removal of the tree and the mitigation scheme. Councillor Sanderson, you still have your hand up.
Yes, that's because I've got a question, Chair. Can I clarify whether those who want the application approved have actually cited a ground? Can I check that with legal?
Hi, through you, Chair. I had understood from the speakers that they had cited value and quality of living to the house, the damage caused by the tree in its current state and proximity to the house, as they consider that the removal of the tree is proportionate to the reasons being cited by the applicant as wanting the tree to be removed.
I think also that both Councillor Butlin and Councillor Garcia and Councillor Bin were also saying that we need to be cognizant of quality of life of the residents, and that sometimes residents have to come in preference to the tree. Is that acceptable, Sarah?
Agreed. They have cited that as one of the reasons to be taken into account as a material consideration. And I note that the recommendation that they're looking for is to grant the consent subject to the proposed mitigation scheme, just for clarification.
Yes, yeah. Councillor Picker, you have your hand up.
Yes, more a question than anything else. Obviously, the applicant has proposed mitigation. I was just wondering whether that is conditioned if we approve this, or if not, can it be conditioned?
Through you, Chair, yes, that would form a condition to the consent, in line with any other conditions that members might think it appropriate to put on the consent. And just for your reference, when consents are granted, they're valid for 2 years. The works has to be undertaken within a 2-year period, and also they're only valid for this one piece of work. So if the work's changed, then the application would need to be resubmitted.
Thank you.
Sarah.
And I believe that when we have trees being planted, we condition that if they should fail within 10 years, then it is up to the resident or the applicant to actually replace them. And that would be the terms of the condition that we would put on. Perhaps Sarah and Head of Planning can advise on the condition.
Through you, Chair, we can put on any conditions that that members feel appropriate. So if the recommendation is for it to be conditioned subject to the mitigation of the trees being planted and then being maintained for a period of 10 years, then that condition can be included. It might be beneficial to delegate authority to the officers to draft appropriate conditions to go with the consent if it is granted.
Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Sanderson, you still have your hand up. And you're muted still. Oh, right, fine. Okay. Was there a seconder for Councillor Sanderson's proposal to go with officer recommendation? No. In that case, and perhaps I can have advice on this one, that Councillor Sanderson didn't get a seconder, but we have a proposal from Councillor Butlin, seconded by Councillor Garcia, subject to conditions, to actually go with the applicant's suggestion.
Just for clarity, and that's the conditions with the mitigation scheme and the 10-year protection on trees in case they fail.
Yes.
We can vote on that one next. Yeah.
Right. Okay. In that case, all right. Can I ask Mr. Gower to take his presentation away, please, so that I can go back to the screen.
Yes.
Okay. And can you mute your camera as well, please, Mr. Gower? Thank you. Right, so we have the proposal by Councillor Butlin and seconded by Councillor Garcia. All those in favour, please raise their hands. How many have we got?
So that's 8 for the proposal, Chair.
Okay. Sorry, I haven't voted. Oh, sorry. Right, so it's 8 for the proposal, is it? Okay, and those against the proposal, please. Can you raise your hands if you're against the proposal? Is that 2?
That's 2, Chair.
Which is 10. And can I have anybody who is abstaining, please? And is that 2 abstentions?
Yes, Chair, 2 abstentions.
Okay, so I think I'm correct in saying then that we have agreed that the applicant can remove the tree and put in the proposed mitigation scheme, subject to conditions which we will defer to officers to come up with the wording. Correct?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that one. Right, so we now move on to agenda item 6 and agenda item 6, advance notice of site visits for planning applications. Do we have any advance notice of site visits?
I can confirm, Chair, we have no new ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. Right, agenda item 7, delegated decisions from the 15th of June 2020 to the 2nd of July 2020. Who's going to be taking this one, please?
The report is just a note, Chair.
Okay. Noted. Can
Noted.
you all raise your hands to note, please? Okay. Is that unanimous, please?
Yes, Chair, that's unanimous.
Thank you very much. You can lower your hands. And now we go to agenda item 8, motion to exclude the public under section 100A part 4 of the Local Government Act 1972 to consider the following resolution. I move that under section 100A section 4 of the Local Government Act 1972 the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of information defined in paragraph 2 of schedule 12A of the Act. Can I have a seconder, please?
I will second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Picker. All those in favour, please raise your hands.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. And can we now pause while IT confirm that they have halted the streaming? Yeah. And if you could advise how many people were watching.